If everyone is present, it's 6:31. We'll go ahead and start this financial management meeting for Thursday, May 14, 2020 to order via Zoom. So if each one of the participants that's a member of the financial management would sign in with a voice roll count that you are present, state your name and that you are present. So Jimmy Haley, County Executive, present.
Bobby Cox, Warren County Schools, present.
Daniel Owens, present.
Scott Rubley, present.
Gary Martin, present. Levy Glenn, Road Superintendent, present.
Everyone signed in. I think everyone was emailed a copy of the minutes from the last financial management meeting. Either that or you received a written copy upon request. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the previous financial management minutes and approved as presented?
Motion to approve and dispense with the reading.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rubley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Owens. Anybody want to speak to that motion or have any corrections to said minutes? And if we could do a roll call vote. County Executive Jimmy Haley, aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Rubley, yes.
Gary Martin, yes. Levy Glenn, yes.
Motion carries. We have several items on the agenda tonight. First item on the agenda is substitute employment vendor RFP letter of recommendation. Mr. Cox, you want to talk to that item on the agenda?
Yes, for the substitute program.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Yes, we our substitute vendor, Kelly Services contract ended. Will end on June 30th. So we put out to bid the contract. And the contract would be for a 3-year contract with 2 possible 1-year extensions. We had 5 vendors who replied to that. And we interviewed all 5 of those via Zoom since we've been out. We chose ESS, which is currently a vendor that's working with 10 other school districts in the state. They're housed out of Knoxville, but they have support in Chattanooga and locally in Lebanon and in Franklin. They were not necessarily the lowest vendor. They had their cost for substitutes at $60, which all of the substitutes did. They also said that they would pay $70 to any certified teacher who wanted to substitute. Their markup was at 28.9%, so that it was lower than our current vendor, which was Kelly Services at 31%. The highest vendor was 37%, and the lowest vendor was 24%. But when we looked at all factors, software that would be involved, that we felt like, our committee felt like ESS was the right vendor for us. We checked the references, the references were good. So, upon that, our board approved that at the last board meeting. I would make a motion to approve ESS and their contract as our substitute vendor for the coming school year.
So a motion from Director Cox that we accept the ESS contract. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have second from Commissioner Rubley. Does anybody have any more questions or want to speak to that motion?
I have a question, Executive Haley.
Okay.
Bobby, my understanding is that there will be somebody here locally in office. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're waiting, obviously, for approval of the committee, and then the contract will go to the full commission for approval. And upon approval of that contract, they will be hiring someone local to fill that role. Yes.
Okay. And that would be their responsibility to do the hiring?
Yes, correct. Be their responsibility, their employee,
employee.
and they would hire the subs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
A motion and a second. Any further questions, Mr. Cox? Then we'll do a roll call vote. County Executive Haley says aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Ruble, aye.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
Motion carries. Next item is the fencing at West Improvements, and it's a bid approval memo. Mr. Cox, you want to speak to that motion or that item on the agenda, rather?
Pull that up right quick. For West Elementary, the fencing of the campus is going to be paid for out of our safety grant. And we bid that project. We had two bids, Grissom Underground and Stubbs Construction. Stubbs Construction came in as the low bid at $54,750. And I would move that we accept the low bid.
So a motion for Mr. Cox to accept the low bid on the fencing at West. Is there a second?
Second.
So a second from Commissioner Owens. Anybody have any questions or want to speak to that motion? And we'll do a roll call vote. County Executive, aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Ruble, aye.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
So with all votes counted, passed unanimously. Next item is the federal programs budget resolution. Mr. Cox.
Yes, thank you, Bailey. The federal programs budget is budget that's governed, obviously, as you know, by Federal Programs Department of the State Department. Annually, we do a resolution to allow the county commission to approve approval of that budget. And this is just this year's resolution to do that. So I would make a motion to send this, pass the resolution and send it to the county commission for a vote.
We have a motion from Director Cox. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Owens. Anybody want to speak to that motion or have any further questions, Mr. Cox?
Is this changing anything, Bobby, than the way it's been done before?
No, sir. No, it's the same way. We just do the resolution every year because really we can't change any of the rules that that the federal government makes. So no, it's the same resolution just for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions, Mr. Cox? And we'll do a roll call count vote. So County Executive, aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Ruble, aye.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Next item is Amendment GFFY 1920-16. Mr. Cotton, you want to speak to that amendment?
Sure can. This is an amendment to accept an amendment to the fuel farm grant for the airport and to accept a new project for the airport in the obstruction clearing design bid. It's a $25,000 amendment for the fuel farm and a $90,000 project with the obstruction clearing. This is to cover the county's 5% match.
Mr. Chairman, this passed budget finance 5-0, and I so move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ruble. Do we have a second?
I'll second it by Levy Glenn.
Seconded from Road Director, Mr. Glenn. Anybody else want to speak to that motion or have any questions? Mr. Cotton, about the airport amendment. And we'll do our roll call vote. County Executive, aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Ruble, aye.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
With all people voting, it's unanimous, so motion carries. Next item is amendment GFFY 1920-17. Mr. Cotton?
Yes, this is another grant for the airport. This would be 100% pass-through money. They expect to receive this money within the next few weeks. It is a aeronautics COVID-19 stimulus money.
So
Move
we
to
have an
adopt.
explanation of the amendment. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rubley. Is there a second?
Bobby Cox.
We have a second from Director Cox. Anybody else want to speak to that motion or have any questions, Mr. Cotton, about Amendment 1920-17 for the airport? We'll do a roll call vote. County Executive Haley, aye.
Bobby Cox, aye.
Daniel Owens, aye.
Scott Ruble, aye.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the next item, it's surplus property. Mr. Cotton, you want to address the surplus property?
Yes, there's a couple things here. The school board, one of the things in there is that they have some expired wax left over with the maintenance department. As while it's not an inventory item, we thought it best to pass that through so that they could try to sell that in order to avoid having to pay to get rid of it. In a similar vein, there are several items for the airport that are just need to be disposed of. They're no longer work, broken, have almost no value, literally no value. Then there's a list of items that would be surplus within the county first for the airport. And then if no one claims them, we would sell them on GovDeals. Then there's multiple items with the school system that, as far as technology items, as normal. I would say that inside the school's items, two of the items are Director Cox's cell phone and laptop, which he had expressed an interest in possibly purchasing from the county upon his retirement with the committee's approval.
So is that your recommendation, Mr. Cotton?
Yes.
Okay.
I did some digging, and due to the age of the computer, it's only worth, trade in at somewhere like a Best Buy or a brick and mortar store. At most, it's going to bring $260, and the phone might bring $300 for trade in somewhere, and that's if it's in super good shape. Director Cox can speak to the condition of the units. They're 2 and 4 years old, so they're probably not in pristine condition anymore. So probably about $500 for the pair. It's probably all we could get anywhere else.
Someone want to make the motion, then we accept the surplus list and allow Director Cox to purchase his phone and laptop.
You're
I'll
asking,
make that motion with the
Motion.
balance to be placed on GovDeals once it's been offered to the departments.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Rubley. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Martin. Anybody else want to speak to that motion or have any questions, Mr. Cox or Mr. Cotton, about said surplus items or the disposal thereof?
Is this just the school stuff we're speaking about, or is it everything?
It's everything. It's the airport equipment and disposal of that's of no value and worth. The list that was sent out with the agenda.
Okay, I've seen some stuff on here I might be interested in looking at, if that's possible.
Okay.
Airport.
Yeah, all that
That's
airport
what we
stuff.
always do. We offer it up first, and then if nobody interdepartmental wants it at then we surplus it out and put it on a govs.deal.
So we would get in touch probably with Justin, is that correct?
Yes,
That's Levy Glenn speaking. Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yes,
thank you.
Levy. We intend to start putting this list on our website, but we can talk to me or Dennis one day next week, and we'll see about that. See which
right.
items you want to go look at.
All right, thank you very much.
We try to do sharing between departments. That oftentimes saves a lot of money. It's more efficient that way. If you need a laptop and we've got some for sale, it's a lot easier for us to sometimes reuse or repurpose those rather than going out and purchasing. So this is what we try to do. So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Then we'll do a roll call vote. County Executive, aye.
Bobby Cox, I feel since part of this equipment, my laptop and phone that I might purchase or probably will purchase, I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay. So Mr. Cox abstains.
Daniel Owens, aye.
So
Scott Ruble, yes.
Gary Martin, aye. Levy Glenn, aye.
So motion carries with one abstention by Mr. Cox. Next item is additional budget amendments and transfers. If there's any of those, Mr. Cotton.
I have none at this time.
So we have none. Any other disposal of surplus property or discussion thereof?
No.
Okay, I will be probably deciding on an item that's up at the courthouse. We'll move through the process. We've been getting an annual bill of nearly $800 for a piece of x-ray equipment at the courthouse. It's not being used. So I've been trying to trace down where we got this piece of equipment. And it's so old, it's not really useful anymore. So I'll probably be bringing that as a surplus item to our next financial management meeting. And so I see no reason to spend thousands of dollars over the course of several years to keep a piece of equipment that's no longer functioning. It's been sitting in the courthouse for multiple years in the hallway. So I've been with TDEC and others to try to figure out what the source of this piece of equipment was, and whether it's not any longer useful. And it doesn't appear to be. I'm not even sure if it's still working or not. So in discussion with the state, they recommended that we surplus it out. So I'll be bringing that to financial management at our next meeting. Mr. Cox, have you got any additional business to bring before financial management tonight?
Well, I would like to say a couple of things, Mr. Haley.
Okay.
Unless there's another financial management meeting before the 22nd, this will be my last one. I appreciate the opportunity to not only serve as the director of schools for Warren County Schools, but to serve with you all on this committee. I know that it's been a privilege to do that for me, and appreciate the opportunity and working on the committee and with the county commission. And would like to introduce tonight Mr. Grant Swallows. He is on the call with us and on the Zoom meeting, and he is our new director of schools, and he will take over on Friday the 22nd. So next Friday he will be the guy serving with you on our committee, and proud to have him aboard. He's been at the office unpaid, I guess you'd say, until getting up to speed for the last several days, and visit schools tomorrow. And I'd hoped I would be able to bring him to you in person on Monday night to let you meet him, but all things in due time. But I would like to introduce him, and he may have some words to say to the committee. But again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. You've all been good friends and good public servants, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve with you.
We do appreciate your service to Warren County and the students across this community. You've been a valuable asset, Mr. Cox, and have served us well. And we welcome Mr. Swallows in that position. So in our meeting yesterday and then briefly again today, I think he's going to fill your shoes well. And we will welcome him to financial management and to all discussions related to education and the county for several more years to come. So welcome, Mr. Swallows. If you want to say a little something to financial management, we welcome any comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Haley, and thank you, Mr. Cox. I just want to say how excited I am to be a part of the Warren County community. And it's been baptism by fire the last few days, and I've learned a lot already. And I'm excited about this, getting to know this process and be a part of this process as well. Just to, as you said, I'm not going to try to fill Bobby's shoes because they are too big. I'm just going to try to bring my own shoes and try to continue the great work that he's done with his team. And that's been fun for me the last couple of days to be able to get to be a part of that. And furthermore, I'm excited about being a part of this team and financial management and getting the opportunity to work with you all. I've gotten to meet some of you. Hope to get to meet all of you sometime very soon. And we're going to get to work next Friday, already working really, but really get to work next Friday and hope to get around and meet everyone and as many people in Warren County as I can.
Thank you. Does anybody got any questions of Mr. Swallows? Has anyone else got any announcements? I've got one or two. Anybody got any announcements? We'd like to say, I've been in conference calls with the governor, over the last couple of months. And it looks like we're going to have to continue what we're doing via conference calls for the remainder of this month. I think he's going to let us something know a little bit later in the month about meetings, but our county commission meeting will be Monday night via Zoom. And so he's recommending, and his staff is recommending, that we still do committees via Zoom and teleconferencing. And so his executive order covers that through the next month as well. So we'll have to play it by ear and see as the day-to-day challenges and changes occur, what our next move is. So it's a little bit difficult during budget time, but in conference calls with the governor's office and from emails across the state, I think Mr. Cotton can address it or whatever. But even during this last quarter, it looks like our sales tax projections are still up. We're really not sure what the next fiscal year is going to look like. They've asked us to predict zero growth and try to pass a budget that's as close to last year's as possible. But with money coming from Washington and Nashville, and the General Assembly reconvening, hopefully going to be June 1st, we should be able to get a little bit more direction toward this last month as we finalize our budget discussions and make some tough decisions about where we go for the next year. So, Mr. Cotton, have you got anything else to say?
No. I've received the same stuff, information that Executive Haley has. They keep saying project no growth or, as close to level as you can. Try not to slash and burn. Just try to keep everything as close to this year as we can, as we did last year.
So I want to thank each and every one of you for your service to Warren County. For Mr. Swallows, thank you for joining our team. So we look forward to working with you over the next years as we move this community forward and invest in our children and education. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Bobby
So we have a
Cox.
motion from Director Cox. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, I don't know who that was from.
Anyone?
I can't hear you.
Daniel.
So it was Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, so Commissioner Owens, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen, and we will see you at the County Commission meeting on Monday.